All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third edition of the Kyokushin Shuffle. A very special guest I have here, a good friend over the last 5 to 10 years or so. Please welcome Sensei now. Congratulations on your promotion.
Yep.
Sensei Ben
Us.
Ajamian from the Gold Coast, Australia. How are you?
Very well, brother. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for accepting the offer to have a chat with us.
No, my pleasure.
Hey, that's pretty
Seeing
cool.
what you've been doing with the other guys, and it's with Shihan Bill and Sensei Graham, and I was like, yeah, man, I wouldn't mind having a chat.
Cool. Sensei, where are you?
I am actually in my dojo with Shihan Cameron's dojo. This is our full-time place, so this is my home away from home, so to speak.
So share with everyone, you are a student of Shihan Cameron Quinn. How long have you been a student of Shihan Cameron Quinn's for?
We worked it out the other day, actually. Next year officially makes it 18 full-time years, non-stop.
Well done. Fantastic.
Yeah. So too long.
So we could be Hey, Sensei, the reason I've got you as probably the third or fourth in line here is you are my spice, as I've just mentioned to you in the chat earlier. I feel that you're a awesome candidate slash promoter of that Kyokushin practitioner that's also dabbled in the likes of kickboxing, MMA, Kudo, BJJ. You're a little champion, man. Explain to us a little bit of, I guess we'll go into a bit of history of who you are and what you've done, but then let lead into that as to why you love martial arts. So if you don't mind, the floor is yours for about 5 minutes so the people out there can get a grasp of who you are, what you've been doing in the last 18 years as such.
Yeah. So basically, easiest way to explain it is Raphael from the Ninja Turtles, man. That was my inspiration.
How good.
Not going to lie. The Red Ranger from Power Rangers was next up in line. So
wow.
Guy came knocking when I was 8 years old. Hey, I'm starting a karate dojo, and I ran to mum and I was like, you got to let me in on this. You know, I was a Lady D kid, so she was like, anything to settle the kid down. And it wasn't even a matter of, Ben, you got to be calm and cool, calm, collect. It was like, I saw how they did it in those cartoons and in the movie. It's all about with the sensei, you know, like you shut your mouth and you go hard and you become a secret weapon, you know. But it's actually really interesting at how I fell into Shihan Cameron's dojo. It was very coincidental. I didn't even know he was teaching on the Gold Coast because funnily enough, I started my karate journey not in Kyokushin. Long story short, started in traditional Okinawan styles of karate, so your Shotokans and your Gojus. Had met some Kyokushin people along the line when I was younger, not knowing what Kyokushin really was. And then I started training with an old dojo mate of Shihan Cameron's here on the Gold Coast. He was actually the branch chief of SoKyokushin Australia, which was pretty cool because I didn't know until years later that he actually refereed one of Andy Hook's first fights against Kakuda in the SoKyokushin days. So there was that connection to Kyokushin there. And then, long story short, and once again, 6 years down the line, felt like it was time to move on. And Dad just happened to run into one of his friends that had his kids from the school that I was at, training under Shihan Cameron. And I was like, cool. I was in that transitionary period, so I was dabbling in a bit of Aikido. I said it was either going to be Aikido, Judo, or another Kyokushin school.
Man, you were hooked, huh? You were in, no doubt about it.
No way. And then that was it. And then it was, funnily enough, Shihan actually wasn't at the dojo the day that I came in. There was a whole bunch of Japanese people, which was very foreign to me. And then big full-time play, there was wrestling mats. And I was like, isn't this supposed to be a karate school? And one of his uchideshi at the time were there. And he was just like, I was like, are you Cameron Quinn by any chance? He just cracked up laughing. He's like, no way, man. Oh, it was so awkward. It was embarrassing. And then he was in the next night and it was history from there.
Whoa. Good on you. Look at that. I mean, I know you've summed it up in about 2 minutes, but that's sweet. That is really cool, isn't it? Because, I mean, the kid that loved the cartoons is now he's dabbling with one of the best masters in Australia / the world, and has been running his dojo for a long, long time. I mean,
yeah,
the cool thing about having a chat with you is, again, I said to you earlier, and to everyone listening, we could chat for 5 hours, you and I, but we're going to do this for an hour, and then we'll be getting you back in. And like I said, to spice it up every now and again, and so on. But Sensei, I mean, you've got so many guests and people and all over the world. I don't know where to start, but I guess if you can give us a segue towards how Shihan Cameron's influenced you, and then let's work from there. Let's see how we go.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind, I think one of the major words that comes to mind whenever people ask me about what's it like training with Shihan Cameron Quinn, the man that wrote the book. I mean, the book, sorry, I'm going to lean, like the book, exactly like you said, the interpreter for Sorsai for many years. Uchideshi has trained arguably, I'm a bit of a controversial sort of guest you'll probably have, because I dabble in, creating conversations, but I would arguably say till to today has the best tournament fighters record in Australia. Purely because of obviously his Uchideshi program and having that understanding and influence and everything. So I think the biggest word that comes to mind, exposure. I've met so many people in the last 18 years that even just trying to think about every single one. And what's really crazy is how many of them actually end up being people that you either watched as a little kid in movies.
Yeah.
I think that's the freakiest part is like, okay, one of the coolest examples
Go for it.
One day, Dolph Lundgren was up on the Gold Coast, right? Doing the filming for Aquaman. And Shihan Cameron, he's such a jokester. He's so jovial. And he's just like, Dolph keeps hassling me. He wants to catch up. And we're like, whatever.
Name drops.
And I'm not even kidding you. Dolph Lundgren calls. And Shihan Cameron grabs his phone and goes, look. So he puts him on speaker. And he's like, hey, Cameron, just hoping we can catch up, man. Like, how have you been? I'm on the Gold Coast.
Unreal,
and we are all just like, and I'm like, Dolph Lundgren, Rocky 4, the showdown in Tokyo, Little Tokyo. Like, I'm just like, what is going on? Who is this man? Like, and even in my younger days, it was just unbelievable. Just getting, signed books from Judo Gene LaBelle to my friend Ben,
cool.
And I was just like, what is this?
Gene LaBelle, what a legend. Wow.
It's just freaky, you know, you talk about all these other fighters, like, like if we're talking about our world, you're like talking about, because I was very heavily influenced by the fighters of like the late 80s to the 90s.
Yeah.
That era, like your Kurosawas, your Kenji Amakis, your Kazumis, of course your Garys and all those sorts of people. But then you see signed photos and stuff, and you're like, oh, well, anybody can kind of get a signed photo. It's cool though, but anyone can kind of get a signed photo. And then you see actual photos of them training together and stuff. Like there's a few photos on the left of me here.
Sure.
Which I'll quickly give you guys a bit of a look at the wall there. That's cool. One of the many walls here. And there's like photos of him with, Shihan Wally, one of him just hanging out with Sorsai doing some kata, cool. A few with, like with Hiroshige, Matsui, Gary, all these photos. And
unreal.
You'd be in the middle of class and you realize that you're actually training with Kancho, Shihan Hiroshige's son, and he ends up being one of your best mates for years.
Yeah.
And you end up talking to him on the phone. And you're like, what? I'm like watching his fighters in videos. I'm drooling at the mouth.
Right.
I'm sitting here, and his son's sleeping over at my house, and doing things like this. And that's the sort of exposure, like you don't realize until you spend long hours.
Well said. That was cool. That is awesome, because you've mentioned some big names there, big names in Kyokushin history, and as we reference it, they're in our backyard. You know, they're hanging out. They're at your dojo where you study. So that is awesome. Hey, give us a breakdown. And I know it's not meant to be a tough question, because I'm sure you can't do it as much justice as you may think. But what's the influence your Shihan has had on you, Shihan Cameron Quinn? See,
gotcha. Yeah, it's a tricky question, because,
of course,
as anyone would know, being in any form of martial art, your instructor, you know, Sensei Graham Rose spoke about in the last one, that the student picks the instructor, you know. So I've always been very gravitated towards experience and a certain type of teaching. So that's probably why even to date I don't ever find myself never learning something from Shihan Cameron, or finding myself quote unquote bored or getting stale or anything like that. You know what I mean? I think, and then there's not only the karate and the training side of things, but then there's also outside of training stuff, you know, and you constantly,
off the mat.
Off the mat stuff, man. You know, like, I can't tell you the hours that I've spent after training at his house. We'll just sit down and you know, he'll probably have a giggle in when you end up talking to him, but, you know, shoot the shit, just talking, you know. And then there's the influence that he's had with me in just life. You know, to me, he is my Mr. Miyagi. You know, he's my adopted father. He's just not short in Japanese. He might as well be Japanese.
Exactly.
You know, but, you know, whenever things were going a bit rough in my, you know, in my teens, you know, mum and dad would just go, Cameron, can you just have a little chat with Ben? You know, one of those things. So it's unbelievable.
Well, that's great, mate. Well, that's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that for everyone to understand, because I think, you know, again, we know Shihan Cameron from certain levels and certain pathways, and people that are listening, you know, Shihan Cameron will be on the show in a couple of weeks' time. He's just overseas at the minute, and I thought, what better way,
as usual,
what better way though to get one of his protege, and you know, that's really cool. So, Sensei Ben, can you share with us also? You have got numerous state titles, numerous national titles. We fought together and represented Australia in the 16 world titles. How much does fighting mean to you, and why? Why do you do it?
Look, I mean, you know, I always refer back to BJ Penn said this in a documentary when he was the very first time he essentially came out of retirement to fight, and he said everyone was asking him why, and he said it in the most simplest way, and it was birds fly, fish swim. This is just what I do. Okay. You know, I know it. Yeah, it's. I've been doing this since I was 8 years old. I'm 32, turning 33.
Yeah.
I actually don't even feel like I've started to slow down. In fact, I feel like for some odd, weird reason, I'm starting to peak now, which for a lot of people is very rare considering how long I've been doing it.
Yep.
I think naturally I've always been very competitive, whether it's because I might suffer a bit of small man syndrome or something. I don't know, like I've got something to prove, but I've always been attracted to
Tell everyone your height and weight, just to set the agenda. No. Yeah. All right.
I think okay, so I'm 169 centimeters tall.
Yep.
So 5'6" in the old language, and I weigh at best. When I compete, I generally compete around 68 kilos.
Yeah.
In a gi, I'll be about just tapping 70.
Yeah. Yeah. But mate, that's, you know, you've we've been a part of many tournaments together, and man, you can crack. You know, what is it though? You know, what deep down after winning certain titles and then going to worlds and getting to that limit, are you still hungry for more?
Well, I think hungry is a bit of an understatement, to be honest. I think, you know, for me, it's somewhere between this weird cross. It's funny too, because as much as you get asked this question, you feel comfort answering it with certain people. And there's another comfort, because I know you have this experience, and you've only just realistically only retired in the last couple of years. You know, so in that 2016 World Tournament, that was supposed to be my swan song. You know, that was supposed to be, I'm done. You know, like, that'll be it for me. And I even said to Shihan, I said, you know, I'm prepared to kill myself essentially in training to make sure that I do the best that I can in this tournament, so I can go out on that high. And
mate, I was on the sidelines there, and we'll share it with everyone. We were pushing you through, and I think, please correct my top 16 in the end in that tournament.
Top 16 in the end, yeah.
Man, and you were up against a hell of a fighter. I think you ended up coming fourth or something in the top 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
What a fight that was. Was that probably one of your best bouts?
I think, you know, what made that fight so amazing for me in particular, and I guess for everyone that was watching it apparently, was I didn't know his background.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Like, all I knew was he's Armenian. I'm an Armenian from Australia. You know, so we kind of had that little bit of a connection there. But little did I know that he was already 2-time All-European Kyokushin World Union champion. He was already like backing one of their world championships as the winner. Since then, he's now 5-time consecutive European lightweight champion, et cetera, et cetera. So, but not knowing that, kind of, I don't know.
I know what you mean.
Dropped all inhibitions, you know.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I just got excited, and I was just like, just go for it, you know. Like, this is, like I said, if I'm going to retire off the back of this fight, off the back of this tournament, then I want to make sure that I retire the right way. And I just remember walking off that ring just with the biggest smile on my face. And I think what made me stick with it was the smile on Shihan's face. You know,
cool. Right.
He was genuinely proud in that moment. I'd like to think, just from the look in his face.
Yeah.
And I walked up to him after. I said, I'm not ready to retire. You know, this guy's younger than me. He's, you know, like all this sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, nah, I'm glad. I think we've got a few more.
I'm gonna rewind a bit.
Yeah, go for it.
You did, you were Uchideshi. Were you Uchideshi?
I did.
Or how did, no.
I pretty much did, because I only lived a 5-minute bike ride from the dojo. And I wasn't working full time. I was only I was technically working full time, but I was also going to uni. But I was at the dojo in the mornings most of the time, or I was at Shihan's place in the mornings 90% of the time if I could get there. Shihan tried to talk me into it a few times. He was like, come on, just do the Uchideshi, you know. And I was like, I pretty much just live up the road anyway. And he goes, that's exactly why. And I'm like, I miss Mum's cooking too much, you know, like. But you know, but it was pretty much, it was a bit tricky, because when I first started training with Shihan, it was full time with Shihan, you know, like there was everything was at my doorstep. But, you know, he had the 2 young ones, and they were still, you know, they weren't even 5 and 6, and life got a little bit hard for him.
His kids,
so
yes.
he, you know, being doing the mum and dad role at the same time. So even he had to pull away, and that, you know, and at that stage, I would have been maybe just turned 18, 19. Okay. And basically Shihan turned around and said, no, I wouldn't have been 18, because I wasn't even a showdown by that. So I was still a first Q, I think. And he turned around and he's just gone. So I would have been about 17, and he just said, you know, look, I trust the way that you teach. I trust the way that you train. The kids and everyone else here, you know, appreciates the way that you do things. So here's the keys.
How cool. Yeah.
I've got to take a step back for a little bit. And I mean, he was obviously around the corner, so we were still training full time together. But, you know, and I think that's what always, it forced me to have to still chase him, because he wasn't at the dojo all the time. So it created that, almost like that Uchideshi thing, where I was having to go to his house and make the effort and actually, you know, seek out the training, as opposed to oh, here it is.
Yeah.
I've got it now. It's mine.
Yeah.
Just spoon feed it to me. No, it was you go there, you make the effort, and
Gotcha.
you do the training.
How many times have you been to Japan?
I've now been 2009, 16, 17, 16, 18, and this year. So 4 times. Now,
I've got a story to share with you, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this. In 2009, I don't remember where the hell I was, but we were there. We were in Japan. I'm trying to remember where we fought, but we were there. And we went to Honbu. And we were at the front of Honbu, myself, Sensei, one of my Sensei Brett Thompson. And look at you,
remember this.
And
I remember this.
I've been to Japan 3 times. We all go to Honbu. There's a lot of people that take photos out the front. There's a lot of people that aren't allowed / due to reasons to be allowed to walk in. We're waiting out the front, just courteously, waiting meaning we're just seeing who was around, and there was a lot of visitors around. Out came you. And
I remember this.
And we just gestured, hey, how you going? What's going on? And you're like, oh yeah, and you kind of gestured nicely. Well, let me see if it's okay for, there was about 4 of us to come to Honbu. What the hell were you doing at Honbu, Sensei?
Wow, I remember. That's so vivid. That was you.
Yeah, man.
I remember Brett. Oh.
Yeah, it was.
Oh.
Listen,
I'm blown away.
For a lot of Australians that, I don't want to bullshit this, but, it was amazing for me. And it was all because of you. I'm here to tell you, thank you. And I've saved it to this day, horse. And I guess share with us a little bit more, though. I mean, you were there and you were training.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so basically, look, I mean, politics aside and all that sort of stuff, we know what Kyokushin's like, so whatever. But again, Shihan, and that word, exposure. So what had happened was basically I was fortunate enough to have gotten to meet in person Sorsai's daughter, Christina Oyama, who was technically the caretaker of the dojo at the time in that sense. And that was Honbu. And she had come out to Australia a few times. So it was very, it was cool that, like all of a sudden, like your parents are taking around Masayama's daughter to like lunch and stuff. And you're going, okay, no worries. Like how weird is that? Right. And then, so what had happened was the head instructor at Honbu, Suzuki Kansho, if you will, he came out to Australia for the camp that year, and he was a bit apprehensive himself, not speaking any any English at all.
Yes.
And it was either myself or Shihan, because I was Japanese speaking, nowhere near as proficient as Shihan, but enough to get me around, and I was doing it through uni, blah blah blah. Sure. So Shihan had turned around and said, well, guess what, as essentially the student that you are and whatnot, you're now taking a delegate around to see what Gold Coast Australia looks like. So I'm taking him to lunches and sightseeing spots and whatnot, and we're getting to know each other and chat. And I guess when you're given that opportunity, and he was quite young, so he was still very relatable and very approachable. And we kind of got to know each other on a bit of a different level. So I guess that kind of helped with that as well. Then I got the invitation myself, us in particular, we got the invitation to go to the, I can't remember which one it was, what number, but I think it was like the 4th or 5th, maybe the 4th Masayama Memorial Open Weight Tournament that they had held every year up until that point and onwards. And I was like, man, I've been wanting to go to Japan. Yeah,
I was there. I went there.
Yes.
Massive hall. Massive stadium. Yeah, I went there. Okay, cool. Yeah. Here we go. All right, keep going.
Yeah, so there you go. So, and I for years had been, Shihan, I want to go to Japan this year. Shihan, I want to go to Japan this year. Shihan, I want to go. And he's like, yep. And every year something, whether it was uni, whether it was life. You know, life is life. You know, as Sensei Graham said, you know, life always takes. And I just, you know, it was just something this time. I just said, nah, I'm going. Rain, hell, shine, plane flies, and I don't care. Like, I'm going to Japan this time. And yeah, sure enough, got the money together, and it happened. And I went with my student Marcus Alec. He had actually, funnily enough, had just won the IKO Matsui Nationals that year. He was only a brown belt, and he beat all the black belts in that division in the middleweights, which was really cool. And I took my youngest student, Katsu, young Katsu. He was with me, and he was only 13 at the time. And we went, and we were like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna compete. And it was an open weight tournament, and I was freaking out because I was tiny then. I was like, I think I'm huge now at a whole 72 kgs. I was only 64 ringing wet back then. Wow. So really little person. And just I guess what happened was I got to Japan, went straight to Ikebukuro, stayed in a hotel, got told off for staying in the hotel because there was room at Honbu.
My bad.
I was like, I'm here for 2.5 weeks, you know, and I'd already paid it up front, so it was already, you know, I'm already there. But basically morning sessions. Yeah. I was at the dojo helping, you know, like there was no specific morning session, but I was training there in the mornings with a couple of the other guys that were there. We had a few of the international guys that were staying there that wanted to train as well, from like Romania and Poland and all that. And then we did the tournament. Yeah, and then we did the tournament. That was an amazing experience as it was. I ended up coming against the winner. Watanabe was his name. And I came up against it. I think he actually came second at the 16 World Championships in the middleweights. I think. I could be wrong, but he looked very familiar. I came across him in the second round, and I fought very much like Gary back then.
Yeah, you did.
You know, moving around, and I remember throwing this axe kick, and I was just like, I just skimmed his face, and you know, he's a middleweight, and I'm a lightweight, and I just thought, shit, I probably shouldn't have missed that, and he just came out like a bat out of hell, and oddly enough, and I guess disappointingly enough, but as we all know, if you're fighting a Japanese fighter in Japan, you got to either knock him out or you're not going to get the win. Yep. So 2 flags him, 2 flags me, and third flag went to him. So, you know, it probably should have went a draw at the very least, but my right leg was saying, thank God it wasn't a draw.
Yeah. Hey, that's cool. And
then we saw you a couple days later.
I just remember my brain just gave me in Osaka. I fought in the second World Cup for the All Japan Union group, and we were in Osaka, and we came back down and spent a couple of days in Ikebukuro. But mate, that was cool, you know, and I thank you for that. And I've got photos / you know, safely for me, and what a moment that was. So thank you.
No, my pleasure. I was pretty much living as a Nuchigeshi there, just staying up the road, you know, like, and I guess having that relationship with Christina Oyama and Suzuki Kancho at the time just gave them that trust to be able to just say, hey, these guys are from Australia, let's let them in. You know, they're just here to take photos and have a look, you know. And I genuinely was like, I know what you mean, man. Like, I walked in the first day and I just broke down crying like a little girl. Like, it was just this, like, your whole life of martial arts, and you're finally in Japan, and you're at like the pinnacle of where it all started for the karate that you have tattooed on your chest now. So, you know, it's a big deal.
I think it was, you know, like hearing our masters talk about it, and hearing, you know, the forefathers of Kyokushin, and seeing the documentaries and all those things, and then you're actually, you know, seeing where the 100-man kumites were done. You're seeing, you know, I would hear stories of when Hanchi Eddie, Shihan Eddie, and Shihan Billy would be waiting for Sosai, and hundreds of people in that little street, you know, just waiting for Sosai. And what an experience. But there you go. That's cool. Thanks for bringing that up. Sensei, give us a little bit of a rundown on your love for mixed martial arts, but I guess in a component of, you study a bit of BJJ as well. You've had a bit of Kudo in your taste buds. You've got a bit of kickboxing. What warm us up and give us a bit of an idea, because when I spoke to Shihan Billy about, if you may have heard about the base of what Kyokushin does for strikers, and then it starts to just blossom into, you know, working your way into other arts. Give us a bit of a rundown there.
Look, I guess again, when you train under Shihan Cameron, you kind of got no choice. In the
I understand.
In the sense of learning something else, you know, like
cool.
I'd been exposed to jiu-jitsu, you know, the wrist locks and this and that and whatnot, but I'd never been exposed to Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'd done Aikido under Graham Morris when he was teaching on the coast for a few weeks there in the interim. I'd done judo as a kid and leading all the way up through, never seriously, but I'd done judo because I love throwing people and wrestling and whatnot. And then to come into a dojo and see your instructor after you've just finished training for 2.5 hours, chuck a whole weird new gi on with this weird colored belt that's half the size of what it normally would look, getting trained by essentially a gorilla of a man. Like you just look at these guys from Brazil, and they're just animalistically strong. Yeah. And they're ragdolling your teacher, and you're thinking, what is going on here, you know? And it's not that I had not been exposed to it, because me and my friend used to sneak around and try and hire the old UFC videos, VHSs, from the corner store. Yeah. And we'd sit there watching it, and I'd get my dad, because my dad was always into the martial arts stuff. And he'd sit down and watch it with us, and he'd go, see, you can't just be one way, mate. And he's a military man, so he did 10 years in the military, so he knows all about like the reality of combat. Okay. And he's like, you got to be. Dad always said this, and as a junior, when I was a young kid, and I was winning all these like nationals for non-contact tournaments and stuff like that, there'd be like 50 kids in my division at a nationals or a world championships, and he'd sit there and go, "Well done, son, but just remember, you're only the best out of all the people that showed up today. Okay. There's always someone out there that's going to be better than you." And he'd used like the UFC as an example. And so when he saw what Cameron was training, he was like, "You got to get into that, mate, because that's the next step." Yeah. And that was genuinely where my initial exposure / love for it came across. So Shihan would teach it in drips and drabs at the dojo during karate class, and he'd be able to weirdly incorporate it in the striking aspects, in kata, and all these sorts of things. And it would just open your brain and mind to a whole different way of looking at things. Yeah. And that's essentially where it came from, you know, like it was just like, oh, okay. So, you know, you might see this is a block in Pinnen in Taikyokuich and stepping through with a punch. Well, he saw you're taking someone's hands out of their way, and the punch is no longer a punch. It's actually, you know, maybe like an underhook instead, but the step all makes sense because the turn is actually a takedown. And you're like, huh.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. That's really cool that you explained it in that manner, because you and I are in that generation of influence, I guess, and of mixed martial arts, and seeing you know that pedigree of the George St. Pierre's who have that Kyokushin base, but then also these new guys that are coming through. You know, who's some of the guys that you like, and what give us an angle now on the UFC. I know you're a fan of it, and I mean it with respect of the fighting side. You know, not all the BS that gets said and done, whatever. But like the guys,
that's all the fun part.
Who's someone, and why do you like watching? And I guess it'll give some listeners also some perspective of what you're looking for, because I like, and I'm going to share a bit of who I like, and it'll give some of the guys that go, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Look, I mean, obviously, like, I'm grossly attracted to the strikers. Yeah. You know, but I like the strikers that have been able to take the idea that traditional martial arts doesn't work in MMA.
Okay.
So I love the Steve Thompson, the Thompsons, Wonder Boy. I absolutely love what he's done. If we're talking modern times, Machida was the benchmark for doing that, obviously. But your Wonder Boy's brought in this whole different concept. And he's tasted the mat a couple times, but look at what he's been able to do prior to,
Right.
I like guys that, and the girls, don't get me wrong. Like, if you were to ask me who's your favorite female fighter, I would have to say Shevchenko.
Yeah. Yeah. She's
the bullet. She's an animal. She's an absolute
machine.
Beast. With all love and due respect to Joanna Jędrzejczyk and your Rose Nama Nunez and even Amanda Nunez.
Yeah.
Of course they kick the living shit out of me. They'd take me down and they'd eat me for breakfast, and I'm not going to complain. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say is that I just think she's of a different caliber. I like how Shevchenko is the only female fighter who isn't even supposed to be in the same weight class as Amanda Nunez, is the only one who's taken her 10 full rounds.
Yeah.
And not been solidly beaten in a way that says, that was definitely a straight out. She couldn't stand in the ring with her.
When you did Kudo and when you got and you're champion, you've won a couple of titles, haven't you?
Yeah, it's in its
infancy, but hey man, you got to win it to win
two
it.
Two state championships. Yeah.
Beautiful, well done. How was Kyokushin / your adjustment, or I guess the process of you putting it all together?
Yeah, I think that the trickiest part was the fact that Kyokushin, different distance altogether. Obviously because we don't strike to the head because you don't wear the gloves. But what it does help you with is confidence, I feel, with the striking side of things. The understanding of bridging distance as well with your kicks and whatnot, as opposed to just barreling in with punches, helped out a lot with that as well, because it just confuses guys when you do stuff like that. The Kudo experience was cool because I did rely a lot on my striking to initiate a takedown to grapple, but you're only entitled to 30 seconds on the ground in Kudo, and you're only allowed to do it twice in a match.
Okay.
You see, so you got to make the most of that 30 seconds that you're on the ground, or minute, whatever, or you're toast. You know what I mean? So you can either use it all in one go, or you can be smart about it, take the person down, get a couple of quick points, and be done with it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And that's kind of how I tried to use it. Weirdly enough, I actually won my 2 state championships by a submission.
Cool.
Work that out. Right. So
practice.
And I think that kind of played in my favor, because maybe they weren't expecting the fact that, knowing that I was a Kyokushin guy, that I would have that understanding of wrestling and submissions and whatnot. So it opened my eyes a fair bit as well to the fact that you can't be so one-dimensional with your striking as well.
Okay.
Kudo even allows for headbutts and holding in elbows because they're wearing the helmet. You see the kishiki. So that in itself brings a whole new dynamic to distance. Where you think that you're doing all right standing in close with someone trying to grapple with them, and all of a sudden they just go, yeah, no worries, and just crack you in the face mask.
Yeah, cool.
You kind of just go, wow, okay, yep, I understand now. This isn't happy go time. We got to get serious with this, And
I'll take it down to the ground now, because you've also dabbled in jiu-jitsu, and as your master he has a background in BJJ, and so you've also had a crack at that. And I guess what I want you to share a little bit here is two sides to it. The Kyokushin practitioner that dabbles with jiu-jitsu, in respect of how, you've done this for 18, 20 odd years in one style, and then you're trying to learn and adapt into something else. And we go through the philosophies of, you got to know 1,000 times, your suki before you do it 10 times. how do you give some tips out there for some guys that are Kyokushin guys that want to have a double with jiu-jitsu, and then some jiu-jitsu guys that you want to double with a bit of a, hard full contact karate? What's your, I guess, lead on that?
Look, I mean, you can't beat consistency for starters.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing was, and still is for me, is that don't be, I guess, we're fighters, so we're always attracted to, I want to know how to finish someone. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to get it done and be out of there, sort of thing. I guess my whole influence on grappling outside of Shihan was looking at fighters like Chuck Liddell, who used his grappling experience from university, his wrestling experience, to make sure no one could take him down. So he could stand up and strike, you know what I mean? So what I would say is I, as a Kyokushin guy looking into the grappling side of things, I looked at it from the perspective of, how can I use this to be able to create more of a strength for my stand-up, as opposed to, to making my ground fighting my true strength, you know what I mean? So I always wanted to use it as a complement to the other.
Nice.
And that's not to say that I don't love arm barring people and I don't love rear naked chokes and all the rest of it.
Sure.
Like, who doesn't like that? If I can keep the fight standing up, then I'll do that. But for the BJJ guy who wants to get into striking, I guess the biggest thing that they have to understand is again, it's just stepping out of your comfort zone. You are going to get cracked in the face, whether you want to or not. You know, and work the ranges that complement what you already are so good at. I think a lot of fighters get caught up in the whole, and I myself have done it. Like where if I'm fighting a particular person, or if I was going to a kickboxing match, I want to try and, like stand there and duke it out with them. And the reality of it is that's not my strength. My strength has always been moving around, popping really clean shots, working combinations together, throwing a mad kick here and there, and then moving around. And that's what eventually worked for me. But sometimes ego takes over,
of course.
And I was actually talking to the students tonight about this, is like, learn how to, I guess, utilize your strengths in such a way that no one can expose your weaknesses.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, so train your weaknesses till they become strengths.
Yeah.
And then train your strengths to the point where no one can utilize your actual strengths as a weakness. Because I was saying to them, like, if you're tall and you're lanky, people are going to know that your strengths are your kicks and your length.
Okay.
So they're going to use that against you. And expose that as an actual weakness, not a strength. Much like BJJ guys versus grapplers, we know that a striker versus a grappler, we know that a striker is going to want to stand and duke it out and use that distance to sort of keep the other person at bay, but then as soon as the grappler gets a hand on you and you don't know how to defend against a takedown, or even at least know what's happening through feeling what's about to happen, then of course your strength has now been exposed as a complete weakness, and you don't know what to do about it.
Good, good stuff.
Can we pause for just 1 second, Pat?
You sure can.
Sorry about that. Just had to change up some spots there.
No sweat.
Looking like it was going to go.
It's all fun, man. We're just having a fun chat, and man, you've shared a lot already, which I appreciate. I'm not actually, we're going good. We're going good. So, Sensei, I want to dabble. Like I said, we're not here to. We'll catch you later on in the year, and I look forward to talking more about it. But I want you to share a little bit here on. I mean, have a look there, for example. And I know you're not. You just said, "Oh, look at all those trophies." I'm not trying to show off there, but you've run the dojo for Shihan Cameron Quinn. You guys have a killer stable of lads. How are you going with that? I mean, I love hearing from other dojo operators, and there's a lot of dojo operators that have written to me in the last couple of days that want more. And I guess share with us a little bit more on how you manage it. You have a full-time job. I have a full-time job. You're adapting to life as well, day by day. Give us a bit of context around that and how you're going up there.
Yeah. So look, I mean, dojos will always have their up seasons, their down seasons and whatnot. Right now, it's that time of the year where kids are going on holidays. You know, and I also think that people sort of think a full-time dojo, it's never going to have that downtime, you know, like it's got to be full all the time. And that's, unfortunately, it's not the case, you know. In fact, it's even harder because you have no excuse to close the dojo and say, oh no, it's Christmas, so, you know, we can't train for the next 2 weeks or something. You know, it's a bit tricky at the moment, I think, because especially on the Gold Coast, it's so overly saturated with MMA and BJJ. Like, we got a BJJ school literally 1 street away from here, you know, and we teach BJJ here, you know, but it's a different style. It's not a different style, but it's just a different way of teaching it, you know. So, you know, I teach wrestling and kickboxing and stuff on Thursday nights. Cool. You know, in between, and another 2 streets down, there's a judo school. You know, and literally 1 street the other way, there's a taekwondo school. Like, that's, at one stage, the Gold Coast had one of the highest condensed martial arts schools to people per capita in all of Australia. You know, like, and now with the exposure of the UFC and all that sort of stuff, and the kids are loving it, you know, like, I think it's transitioned a lot since the time of the 80s, the 70s, 80s and 90s, where karate schools were the bee's knees. And, you know, and then you slowly got that turn towards the Muay Thai and the kickboxing and stuff like that. Even, you know, like with myself, I always go and I train at other places and expose myself all the time. So, you know, it is hard being a karate school. But we've learned to adapt, because we have to adapt. You adapt or you die, you know. So you gotta either introduce something different. I'm not necessarily saying all karate schools need to teach grappling and all that sort of stuff, but you gotta have that difference, that point of difference, you know. And a lot of the time, from my understanding, it's the teacher that draws the students in. You know, it's not really the fancy schools or any. You know, I was teaching out of a scout hall for like 5 years, and I had, you know, 50 full-time students.
Nice.
You know, it baffles you, you know, versus you got a full-time school here, and you got a roster of about 40 odd, walk in, walk out, all that sort of stuff. You know?
Good approach in bringing up. And you and I, again, you know, we've got 6th, 7th Dan masters at our, you know, fingertips, and we've got some major responsibility as well. And the responsibility was brought up with my chat with Shihan about the growth of Kyokushin, the growth. And again, how are you seeing it? Did you keep an eye on the Kyokushin world? Did you see a bit of the IKO on the weekend? Share with us a little bit of how you see growth in Kyokushin, if you have any take on that as well.
I think what really says a lot is, obviously I follow a lot of different people on Instagram from around the world. And in the Kyokushin world. And you're starting to see a lot more schools are trying not to be so one-dimensional, you know, because whether or not we like to admit it, while kids keep the dojo running, as we used to say, you know, like the kids are there, because they're going to be the next stage, the next stage, the next stage. So you can teach them karate, and they'll love it till, you know, me and you, we started when we were young, you know, we're still doing karate, right? But it's the adults that are the ones that can give us more exposure in the right ways. You know, they're the ones that want to become fighters. They're the ones that want to go into tournaments or, you know, kickboxing matches or whatever, because they themselves are looking for a type of exposure or fulfillment. So what I'm starting to see is a lot of schools are starting to evolve in that sense. You know, they're not just Kyokushin schools anymore. You know, they've got a ring in the exact same school.
I get what you mean.
Some of them are now starting to push towards the BJJ thing, you know.
It's turning into, you know, and I'm a part where my dojo is inside Hammer's Gym. And Hammer's Gym is one of the biggest joints biggest facilities in like the Southern Hemisphere, because of square by meter. And he's got boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a Kyokushin Dojo, Sensei Pat's Kyokushin Dojo, just on that level as well. But I understand what you mean now. Yeah, there's just it's a whole mixture of things that are starting to find their way in. But yeah, the growth of Kyokushin, though, is also a responsibility for a whole bunch of us. And I think, we still have to, I used the term when I was holding the fort for Shihan Bill, I used to call it just holding the torch, holding the flame. And making sure that I did my absolute best in holding the flame. And and he brought up the other chat we had, that everyone has their spot. Everyone has their spot in regards to why they're doing Kyokushin. And I think in sharing that side of it, it's also, and again, we're just chatting in respect of, you got a student that's 18 years old, you got a student that's 65 years old, 65-year-old that I have in my dojo wants to go in tournaments.
Yeah, I got the same.
Hey,
they're psychotic.
And I'm like, and like I say, all respect, man. That's unbelievable. If I'm walking around throwing shituskis and copping guidons from 18, 30-year-olds at 65, unbelievable. Yeah. But I got a duty of care, man. I got a duty of care. And then I've got the 18, 19, 20-year-old that's like, hey, I want to go in the Arnolds, for example. And you're like, okay, we need to work.
Big step.
We need to just take control here. We need to take care of people as well. And what I'm sharing here is the cool bit of the age demographic and how we have to accommodate all different ages. Hey.
Yeah. Well, so, Sensei Graham Rose said it really well in the last one. He said, your students to a degree actually do dictate the class as much as we don't like it. Like I come from before I even met Shihan Cameron, I was already technically a knee dan, a junior knee dan, but I had done 30 rounds and I had done 40 rounds with adults as a kid. And I got flogged and they were 9-hour games because my old teacher comes from like the old school, he's got, teenage kids doing what adults today wouldn't do because it's just stupid, but that's how old school it is, a fly's coming up your nose, suck it in, good protein for you, that sort of old school, right?
Wow.
I can't train kids like that today. I tried that. I've gone and I've tried that, for years. And the kids are just like walking out. I'm like, kids today are soft, when I was their age, I was doing 4 hours a night, and loving it. And I was walking out just going, I can't wait for tomorrow. Unfortunately, the reality sometimes is that we have to take into consideration 25% of the kids that we have are there because it's a really good daycare for mum and dad, because it gets the kids to lose that energy, and the kids love it themselves, and mum and dad can go away for an hour and come back. Kids are poop, but they're loving life, but they're also getting that discipline and everything else like that. Yeah. And then you get that next level of kids that are like, they see people like the closest examples are you and me, and they go, that's what I want to be, and then they get to that next age, those teenage years where they go, yeah, man, I'm all for this. I'm going to kill it. Yeah. And then they get to start working a part-time job.
Yeah. Life.
I got to, where I turn around and said, all my jobs are going to rotate around my training. I do not care. Kids today, very different. And they're like, oh no, it's the other way around. And I'm like, you guys don't know what you're talking about.
Share how you've done that. Share how you've done that, and I mean, again, we've probably got another 5 more minutes left to go, but share how you do it. It helps. I feel it helps people appreciate and understand how some people are doing it. Some people think I run the Nunawading Dojo full time. No, man, I got another job. I got a full-time job, and I'm bloody passionate as hell. And as we all would, we'd love to run our own thing daily. But how have you been able to manage, how your transition with things?
Yeah. I've always, my biggest thing was, I think because I love it so much and I've always wanted to be there for everybody. I always looked at it like I wouldn't be where I am today without my teachers opening up a dojo and having that facility available to me, regardless of what was going on, right? So I've always had that mentality, but I've always loved training myself. So what I've done over the years is I've always, especially going through uni and then after uni, I've always gotten a job that'd just be paying me enough to support the lifestyle that I like to live, which, for some people is probably a little too frugal. For others, it's probably not enough. I don't know. But at the same time, what that's been able to do is it's been able to accommodate for the fact that I can show up to train at night for 4 or 5 hours. I can do my gym training in the morning. I ran a school full-time, essentially full-time. So that was 4 nights a week, plus doing my own training, plus uni full-time, plus 2 full-time jobs. And I was working doors, which was that's a whole nother conversation for me and you.
Oh, yeah.
Being my size, working doors in Surfers Paradise.
That's cool.
But
next chat.
And then, next chat. And then, and then now at the moment, like I work full-time for a bank. Bendigo Bank, shout out to Bendigo Bank.
Look out.
You know, so that's a 9 to 5, but I've made sure that it's a 9 to 5 because I still want to get to training. You know, I can train in the mornings, I train at night, I do it 5 nights a week, and then I have the weekends to myself to train. So I go a little bit cabin fever if I don't.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, I get what you mean. I think I use it as a, like I tell my wife, I'm like, and she says it, you're training tonight or you're teaching tonight? And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And she's like, good, because you need to.
Why are you asking?
You need to train, and you know, and I guess there's a lot of us out there, and those that are listening, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to Ben and myself if you're in that triangle of understanding how to accommodate, how to adjust, and I think you know, and what I'm leading to is there's a lot of students that are getting through that Shodan Nidan. We're going through an era here where we're coming through in that mid-30s. I'm 38, you're 33, 32, 33. We're young Sundowns, and we're so lucky and so blessed. And the teacher that you've had and the teacher that I've had, and I aspire to make sure that the students out there today that are going in that Shodan Nidan level, and again, they have their mentors and they have their people, but they might want to chat to other people. They might want to hear something different, and we're all ears. I know you are, and that's a cool thing. Sensei, one last thing, and I think it would just be a nice full stop for us here is.
Yeah, far away.
And you've shown your passion, which I absolutely love. You know, you're straight into it, and that's why I said you're the spice man for me with the shuffle. Your passion, man. Your passion towards, again, there's 3 sides to what I'm saying with you. You're a Kyokushin man. You're a teacher as well, you know, and you also got that mixed element of like mixed martial arts, meaning other parts of martial arts. What is it? Why are you doing 4 hours every night? Why are you doing all this? Why are you waking up lifting weights? What the hell is going on?
To be, you know, it's hard to answer this question without getting on any level emotional when you have to be raw about it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's the passion, you know, like if someone asks you this question and you're not getting even just a little bit choked up about it.
Sure.
I'm not saying that you're not passionate enough.
No.
But what I am saying is that in itself, it delivers the punchline, you know, like I do it because since I can remember, this has been my life.
Yep.
But it's everything that's come along with it has given me the life that I have today. I know that sounds really cliche and really, you know, but the truth of the matter is I genuinely, hand on heart, I would not be on this earth if I hadn't kept doing what I've been doing. You know what I mean? Like that, and it's those sort of moments that make you go, fuck yeah, I love this shit, man.
Yeah.
You know, like I love it for myself. I love that I can give it to other people. You know, I train as much as I do because I love training. I love keeping in shape and all that sort of stuff. The feeling that you get from being at your peak as well as just feeling good.
Yeah.
And then you get that awesome feeling that comes along with, you see your students all of a sudden coming up and they start to kick your ass a little bit and you're like, I've done something right here. I've done something right. If they're doing that, I've done something right, you know?
That's
and
cool.
Shihan said that the first day I walked in the dojo. He said, if you're in 10 years, in 5 years, if you're not better than me,
right,
then I'm not doing my job right. The students should always at some point outgrow their teacher to the point where they recognize the teacher as their teacher, but not just the teacher for karate, blah, blah, but for life. But then they're so good at what they're doing that you've fulfilled that avoid. I don't know. Like, it's fucking awesome, man. I don't know. Like, it's just.
No, you nailed it, brother. No, I look at that. No, that's a perfect way of putting it. And I know there's probably 10 different answers, but I did put you on the spot, and I love your energy, man. And I'm sure a lot of people out there love this different energy. And yeah, you know, thank you. You know, we'll close it here, but again, we'll get you back on. There's no doubt about it. I love you, man. You're doing an awesome job. I want you to share with people that are listening, if they're in the Gold Coast, you know, I want them to, what's your, you know, your Insta and your Facebook and your facilities there, mate, so people can, you know, reach out to you that are listening.
Yeah. So shout out to the dojo first. It's the Quintessential Combat Center, play on words, Quintessential, or QCC. It's found in Currumbin on Hayter Street, 7/10 Hayter Street, Currumbin, on the Gold Coast. My Instagram tag is Punisher Fit, Punisher F.I.T. So you find me there. If you ever want to just get in contact, by all means, reach out. And my Facebook is my name, Ben Ajamian. That's Ajamian. I've got massive ears, guys. I'm obviously, like Pat said, I'm clearly passionate. So I'm a good listener, and I love a chat. So yeah.
Sensational, Sensei. Congratulations on your promotion. Well done on how you're going with everything. We look forward to chatting again. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Congratulations to you, man. You're doing an awesome job with this.
Awesome.